I'm allowing the plants to build their own electric. I'm allowing them to become an electric utility so they can produce their own electricity, because we need double the to be successful.
A stark new warning from the Energy Department. According to new projections, Americans could face up to 800 hours of blackouts per year by 2030. That's more than a month without power, and it's raising some questions about the reliability of our electric grid.
And residents on the Sunshine Coast say they're against sending all the power from a local dam to the U.S. for 30 years.
A sharp new alert has been issued by the Department of Energy. Their latest projections warn that by 2030, Americans could endure nearly 800 hours of blackouts each year. That's the equivalent of being without electricity for more than an entire month annually. The report is sparking new concerns about whether the U.S. power grid can truly be relied upon. Meanwhile, on Canada's Sunshine Coast, locals are voicing strong objections to a proposal that would see all the electricity from a nearby dam shipped to the United States for the next 3 decades. In British Columbia, what seemed like a standard application has erupted into a nationwide debate. Powell River Energy has formally requested approval from Canada's national regulator to sell power to the U.S. for 30 years straight. If granted, this would secure supply through 2055. But what initially appeared to be a routine export deal has quickly encountered fierce pushback from residents, business associations, and the Tla'amin First Nation. For Americans, the timing is especially striking. Washington is counting on Canadian electricity to make up for shortfalls caused by soaring domestic costs and project delays. But rather than stability, the U.S. is now seeing a supposedly certain deal stall at its very first stage. The Powell River Dam, once the beating heart of a paper mill that produced for more than 100 years, shifted its output southward after the mill's closure in 2021. Exporting that power seemed straightforward. Yet now, the plan is caught in the middle of bigger debates over regional growth and energy sovereignty. This local clash highlights a much broader reality. Trump's tariff policies are colliding with the realities of the energy sector. The tariff program was designed to reinforce U.S. control over critical supply chains. But across industries, and particularly in energy, it's producing the opposite effect. Trump imposed tariffs ranging from 25% to 50% on steel and aluminum, which pushed up construction costs for utility companies. Added duties on copper and other key metals slowed the pace of investment in transmission lines and renewable projects. According to the Department of Energy's summer 2025 review, expansion goals for the U.S. grid are already behind schedule. These delays have elevated the importance of Canadian imports. Washington assumed that Canadian electricity would be there without question. The Powell River fight shows that assumption is weak. Canada is starting to treat electricity not as an endless export, but as a national asset. Communities and even provincial authorities are pushing to hold on to more power at home. That's why Trump's trade war has built a new paradox. Tariffs designed to boost U.S. independence have actually made America more reliant on outside energy, while simultaneously motivating Canada to keep tighter control of what it sells abroad. And the opposition in Powell River is far from symbolic. The Tla'amin Nation and local groups like the Cranberry Business Association are in the middle of redeveloping the old mill site. Their investment pitches explicitly rely on guaranteed access to local power. Residents have rallied under a coalition called Energy Democracy for BC, warning that no one can accurately predict what the area's energy needs will be 3 decades into the future. Even BC Hydro, the province's main utility, has filed its own request to tap the Powell River supply under Canada's fair market rules. What looks like one licensing battle is in fact part of a much larger pattern. Across the country, Ottawa is rolling out ambitious nation-building initiatives in energy and resources, from LNG export terminals on the Atlantic coast to cobalt refining projects in Ontario. The message is consistent. Canada wants to capture more of the value chain inside its own borders rather than exporting raw resources. And the longer Washington leans on tariffs, the stronger Canada's incentive to strengthen its industries instead of serving as America's resource well. Powell River is one community, but its debate represents a national direction. For the White House, the stakes go well beyond one dam. Manufacturers in U.S. border states are already paying more for electricity-intensive production. If Canada starts limiting long-term exports, those costs will only rise further. Trump's strategy was supposed to give Washington leverage. Instead, it's producing the reverse. Canada is learning to conserve and build with its own resources, while the United States struggles with fewer options and greater dependency. The Powell River license is still under consideration, with public consultation extended until October 4th. But the broader takeaway is hard to ignore. Tariffs and hardline tactics were meant to lock in American strength. Instead, they've emboldened Canadian communities to reject long-term export deals and protect their supply. A local battle has now become a clear example of how Trump's approach to trade and energy is backfiring, leaving the U.S. facing harsher choices about its own future. And while all this plays out, Americans are already feeling the impact directly in their wallets. Energy bills are climbing at more than double the pace of inflation. Over the last year, consumer prices overall rose 2.7%, but energy costs jumped by more than 5.5%. Nearly 60 U.S. utilities are preparing to raise rates again in 2025, adding an estimated $38 billion in higher electricity costs and another $3.5 billion for natural gas. Demand is rising faster than at any point in decades. Utilities executives admit, "We've never seen energy demand grow like this in generations." The causes are clear. The rapid growth of artificial intelligence data centers, the widespread adoption of electric vehicles, and the electrification of everyday life. America is consuming more power than ever before. And this surge comes at the exact moment President Trump is demanding that factories return to U.S. soil. His vision depends on cheap and reliable electricity. But the foundation for that vision is weakening. Recently, Trump held a call with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. Ottawa described the exchange as broad and constructive, covering trade and economic priorities. But the context raises questions. If energy is the missing puzzle piece for Trump's plan, did he call because Carney controls much of what he needs? Tariffs have been the central weapon of Trump's second term. This month, he announced a 100% tariff on imported semiconductors, with exemptions only for companies willing to manufacture inside the U.S. The logic is the same across sectors. Make imports expensive enough that supply chains shift home. Tariffs of 50% on steel and aluminum remain in place. Transformers and other grid equipment are also caught in the net. But while this strategy seeks to create domestic advantage, its side effect is spiraling costs, especially for the very energy infrastructure needed to power Trump's goals. Old coal plants are being extended, and new gas plant proposals are back on the table. But construction timelines stretch into years, and turbine prices have tripled. Coal still costs more than natural gas or renewables. Regulators caution that extending coal plants will only add costs that utilities pass directly to households. The contradiction couldn't be clearer. Tariffs may lure factories back, but they risk driving energy prices even higher. Meanwhile, Canada is charting its own course. Prime Minister Carney has declared openly, "Our government recognizes that to make Canada a true energy superpower, we must diversify partners and expand our leverage with the United States." The reality is that Canada possesses nearly everything Trump needs. British Columbia alone has deposits of 16 different critical minerals essential for EVs, semiconductors, and clean energy technology. Ottawa is investing billions into infrastructure linking mines, railways, and ports to create full supply chains. It's scaling up solar, wind, nuclear, and hydrogen, while pledging to make its oil and gas the cleanest in the world. Already, Canada provides more than 4 million barrels of oil per day, over 8 billion cubic feet of natural gas, and more than 80% of America's imported electricity. Roughly a quarter of the uranium-fueling U.S. nuclear plants also comes from Canada. These are not marginal contributions. They are the backbone of North American energy. That's why the recent Trump-Carney phone call is so significant. Ottawa described it as constructive, but Washington gave no details. Still, the timing tells the story. With American demand surging and tariffs raising costs, only Canada has the capacity to fill the gap. The trajectory is becoming obvious. Tariffs may win Trump headlines, but American consumers are paying the price. Canada, in contrast, is strengthening its hand as a strategic energy supplier. Manufacturing may return to the U.S., but it cannot survive without energy. And in North America, that path runs directly through Canada. Canada's energy role doesn't stop with oil, gas, and power. It's also becoming central in the race for critical minerals, the very building blocks of modern technology. Ottawa is moving aggressively to develop cobalt, lithium, and rare earth production. In Ontario, a new cobalt refinery has just begun operations, marking the first facility of its kind in North America. The goal is simple: to secure the essential metals required for electric vehicles, batteries, and defense technologies, while reducing reliance on China. The United States has already acknowledged that without these Canadian projects, its own energy and technology transition cannot move forward. Yet Trump's tariff strategy is creating more hurdles instead of fewer. By targeting imported metals and machinery, his administration has raised costs for the very industries America needs to stay competitive. In practice, this has given Canada an unexpected edge. Investors are increasingly treating Canadian energy and mineral projects as safer bets than their U.S. counterparts. Ottawa has sweetened the deal with tax incentives, streamlined permitting, and large-scale subsidies. Meanwhile, U.S. projects are stalled by high costs, uncertain timelines, and legal battles. Canada is seizing momentum, while U.S. projects stall in red tape. The question now is simple: who's really leading North America's future? We'll keep uncovering the truth here on Traveling Vibes. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. The next chapter is just beginning.